Now, here to discuss Trump's interview with Hugh Hewitt is our favorite lefty, who thinks that Trump is the greatest thing to happen in Republican politics since Warren G. Harding. Jonathan Ayers, good to have you.
That's pretty accurate.
Did you like that?
I did.
Well,
that's pretty accurate.
So you heard the interview with Hugh Hewitt. I had to comment on it today on Fox. I personally, just having watched all this, kind of doubt it's going to have much impact.
I don't think it will.
Okay.
I don't think it will.
Do you think it was a gotcha question? Do you think it was unprofessional of Hewitt to ask it?
You know, when I heard about it, I was all ready to just be like, it was a gotcha. It wasn't a gotcha question. Trump's just whining like he always does. And then I listened to him, like, who knows that? Like,
who knows?
And I'm like, who? That's a ridiculous question. It was, and it was.
I loved all the sudden geniuses on Twitter who were
right?
like, I knew all of that.
And I
I'm
knew
like,
this without
sure
doing a quick Google search on what it was. Like,
Pamela Geller knew it, and that's probably about it.
That's,
like anyone who studies terrorism and that's all you study might know that.
That was pretty obscure. It was the name of I believe it was a group. They were like different groups, and it was a name of a specific group. And he said that versus the Kurds. I think it was the Cuds or something. And it was just that was.
Let's go ahead and play that clip just so we refamiliarize the audience with that in case they haven't heard.
Are you familiar with General Soleimani?
Yes. Go ahead. Give me a little. Go ahead. Tell me.
He runs the Quds forces.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Do you expect his behavior?
The Kurds, by the way, have been horribly mistreated by us.
No, not the Kurds. The Quds forces, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Quds forces, the bad guys.
Right.
Do you expect his behavior to change as a result?
Kurds.
No. Quds.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Kurds. Because I think the Kurds have been very poorly treated by us here. Go ahead.
Agreed. So Soleimani runs the Quds forces. Do you expect his behavior is going to change as a result of this deal with Iran?
So, yeah. And I mean, you and I, we're news junkies.
Right.
We watch all the news. We go on shows and comment all the time. We even talk about terror a lot.
Yes.
And neither of us knew that. So I just don't think it's fair.
I was ready. I wanted to say Trump was an idiot. I wanted to so bad. But it was like.
I'm pretty proud of you.
Yeah,
you didn't just seize onto this top because I think it's intellectually dishonest to. Okay.
And actually, even more not to be partisan, Carly Fiorina went on, I believe, the same show, and he asked her, and she had a pretty eloquent answer.
But it was later.
But it was later. Exactly. It was later. I'm sure all of the GOP candidates were like, we need to find out exactly what that is.
But I think that was went out immediately to everyone's favorite candidate to say, hey, when you go on Hugh Hewitt, you better know your terrorist leaders.
That was a pretty obscure question. So he was totally fine. And it was pretty clear also. I think he was on Morning Joe, and he said kind of what you heard there, which was, I thought he said something else. He's like, I thought they said Kurds, which is totally reasonable. That kind of was a gotcha question.
Okay, so was it a gotcha question?
I think so.
When President Obama was asked about how many states were in the union, and he couldn't get that number right.
I think those questions very often are, it's like the game Weakest Link, where you would ask someone something like, what's 2 + 2? And it's like, if it catches you at the wrong time, you're like, I don't know. I think it just has to do with when you ask the person. He had been campaigning constantly, and I think he was just kind of out of it. So, kind of. I think those are kind of gotcha questions.
Okay, you know what? This might be another moment for us, Jonathan. We have these.
Is this number 2?
Well, I think it's embarrassing that the President of the United States has done a lot of things he's done. But I just have to imagine he knew how many states. Like, it's like when Dan Quayle misspelled potato. And having been on that side of politics with my husband, I know we would go days without sleep, like you did last night.
Yes,
we would go days. You look so good, though.
Thank you.
And you haven't misspelled or done any math wrong.
Not so far.
So we're kind of proud of that. But I do know that I remember literally watching my husband sit on a bench to get his picture taken for the campaign. And I remember watching him sleep, and we would wake him up, and he would open his eyes and smile for the picture because he was so unbelievably exhausted. I remember him making mistakes in conversation with me, and me thinking, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?"
And you know those things. It's just when they come at you, the amount of rest you're not getting, and I don't.
And they're human, by the way. They are human. I think that we tend to forget that, and I kind of like about Donald Trump that he's kind of reminded us about that human side of us that gets angry when you shouldn't. That that makes mistakes.
I think he's a nut, but. I know. Yeah, I think he's a nut, but this I wanted terribly to say he was an idiot.
And I think Obama's a nut too. So we've got that going for us.
But he was fair. He was fair here. It was perfectly reasonable. He thought the guy said something else, and it's a pretty obscure question, even if you hear it properly. It's not something that your average even media person or political candidate would know right offhand.